Woo. Here we go.
Firstly, welcome to the W, welcome to the podcast studio, and welcome to our first ever podcast for Crate.
Woo.
It's so good to
That
have you.
sounds amazing. It's good to be here.
Yeah. I don't think there could be a better person to kick off our podcast than the founder, CEO
All right.
of the baby that we call Crate,
Mm.
than you, Mr. Kaiser Waldon. So welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. Good to be here with you, man. Really, lots to talk about, lots to share with our scene, with our people, producers and DJs. We're talking about you. So yeah, couldn't think of a better host, better place. But I'm gonna let you ask the questions and tell your story, and then we can get into the other stuff.
Let's probe a bit and let's start off where this entire journey began.
Okay.
So let's segue into a beautiful little introduction. About how it is that I met you through somebody named Goran Mayer. So back in SA, coming from a strong DJ background, lover of vinyl, I found my way into the digital realm with music as becoming a copywriter for a little record label in Germany called MYR.
Oh yeah, MYR fam. Shout out to Goran Mayer. That's how we connected.
Absolutely lovely guy. And that was about, easily about maybe 4 or 5. I would even say maybe close to 6 years ago.
Yeah,
possibly.
Yeah, definitely.
And I even remember the name of the EP that it was in particular. One of the very few tracks that I released was a remix for the main track, Walking Distance.
Yeah.
And the only other 2 people on there was the original, Goran himself, and you on remix duties.
Yeah, just to add to that, that was an interesting thing because I moved to Bali to up my game in production, spent hours and hours in the studio, and it was my first ever solo titled EP under Kaiser Waldon that was released on Double Up Records. And actually Goran hit me up because he saw Claptone playing one of my tracks called Sharon Jones, tribute to Sharon Jones, soul diva queen. And he hit me up, said, "Hey man, heard your track and would you like to remix?" And that was the track Walking Distance, which then Joris Vaughan played the track, which actually it was inspired by my love of Butch and his sound.
Yes.
And I actually got to tell him that at Ultra Resistance in Japan. And that was a nice little full circle thing. So here we are connecting through music, and there's a whole story behind all of that. And that's sort of the beautiful thing, hey?
Exactly.
With this stuff.
Exactly. The human connection that is allowed by music as an art form is something that I think it transcends ethnicity, it transcends time, possibly space as well.
Definitely space.
There's no place where music is not a bringer of light and good feelings, and it's a truly beautiful thing.
Mm. That's why we're here.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Leading up to my journey to Bali, which should have technically been, wow, what a story. 2020.
Oh, yeah.
Sold my car.
Yeah.
Got out of an early lease with my apartment, which was such a blessing. Generally, landlords, they can be quite picky with that sort of thing. Managed to sort out all those things. Sold my car, had some savings. 1 week before, not even a full 7 days, maybe about 5 days, boom, COVID-19. Stopped me dead in my tracks. I did not know what to do. Thank goodness I had my parents for me to have a backup plan. But technically, that should have been when I should have landed in Bali.
Yeah. Yeah, we had everything ready to go.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of things ready to go with some of the best clubs in Bali with our Escape Presents brand. And here you are now with Crate 2 years later.
It's a beautiful
almost
thing.
Around the same month.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Leading up to that time, I would say about, there must have been so much preparation in me actually arriving for that trip. And it was a major setback. And as somebody who at the time was not even relying on music with production or being a DJ as a means of income, that still had such a profound effect on me that I don't even know what I would have done had I not had my parents close enough for me to move in, to them find my feet and and actually make a plan forward for me to then eventually end up where I am right now.
Yeah, and thank God you have your parents to be able to help you. I mean, I'm in the same boat. My mother helped me a lot during the pandemic financially and also with support. And I'm sure there's a lot of other artists out there, DJs and producers of all ages in all different situations that were blessed enough to still have their parents with them to support and help them.
Yeah, yeah.
And to make it through the pandemic, yeah.
What an absolute trouble fire. I can only imagine for DJs and producers who did not have it, like literally cold turkey, no more source of income, no gigs, no ways of getting their music monetized or having any form of cash flow from their creative art. That must have been nothing short of devastating.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, goosebumps, scary stuff.
Leading into that, tell me, when the pandemic hit, as an artist, I knew that you were highly active on the scene. You had gigs, you had your baby escape. Things were good. Things were definitely really, really good. As an artist, as a producer, as a DJ, how did you cope with, number one, having that enormous amount of time on your hands through the pandemic, but just the financial strain of no longer having gigs?
Yeah. I mean, I was really working up to getting some serious momentum. I was scheduled with having a track release every month with different labels. I just released on Dawley's label, Reptile Dysfunction. I just released on an American label, YU Records, collaboration with Nite on that one. And also Motive and Basement Love. So we were having releases every month, and all of a sudden pandemic hit, and it's like no more gigs. I remember my last gig was at Single Fin on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And we got the word from Mississippi saying, yeah, we're closing. So, I went from DJing 6, 7, even sometimes 10 times a week. Too much.
Crazy.
Too much.
Crazy.
10 times a week, having all the momentum built up on the social media and everything, and then all of a sudden completely terrified, absolutely terrified, wasn't allowed to go out. I lived by myself in a little studio cooped up like a chicken, with the view of the volcano. That brought me a lot of comfort, Mount Lagun. And it was a scary time. It was a dark time, I remember when I reached out to you as we were talking about what are we going to do? Are you going to come over still and all that kind of thing? And it was tough because you went on a real roller coaster. That isolation was horrible. And with so much uncertainty and even the consumption of social media or however I was getting my news, whether it was reading articles and stuff, I was going to a really dark place.
Absolutely.
And I'd have to be honest and say that I didn't know what my future was going to look like. I really didn't. I didn't know what was I going to do. It was really terrifying. And speaking about my mother earlier, she really stepped up and said, stay in Bali. It's cheaper to live there. Your base is there. I'm going to support you. And that just, that brings a tear to my eye in the sense of, wow, I'm 30, 35 at the time, and Mummy still got me. It's just, and, she's one of the vulnerable people in this whole thing because obviously older people were we didn't know what was going on, right? We didn't know what this pandemic was going to do. And then I sort of wanted to keep the momentum, keep producing.
Yeah.
But what I realized, I thought, sweet, we've got lots of time to write records until learn new things, revisit old projects, get some more collaborations going.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is great because we can catch up. I tried to turn this thing into a positive. What's the positive out of this? We've got more time to write music. I came to a really strong realization that time alone, being in a studio, is not the answer to creativity and creative inspiration and output because you really take away a lot of other things. I couldn't have friends over writing records with. I couldn't go to clubs and hearing literally one sound that would inspire me to leave the club and start writing a track.
Yeah, yeah.
That sharing of music and that kind of, what would you call it? Inspiration, really.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have the time to make music. It's another thing to have time to consume it and share it, And it really changed my perception on the whole creative process for me personally.
Yes.
It's such an intimate thing, you know, and even experiencing it from the other end where I'm on a dance floor or I'm just in a friend's place and listening to it on a stereo or in their studio, you know.
Absolutely. The concept that we always come back to when music's concerned is the human connection. So if there are two sides to one coin, it would be you're getting inspired, you're in your studio, you are in the flow, and you are making good music because you know not only is it close, intimate, and it feels good to you, it's the fact that you know that more people are going to share this with you shortly as you wrap up your track. You put your things together, you get it mastered, and you get it out there because the human connection and sharing the power of that level of creativity in your studio is essentially what it's all about.
I want to add one more thing. When I write music, I'm writing from a feeling at the time, or I'm trying to create a feeling that I want people to feel from the track.
Yeah.
And when you're locked up and cooped up in a chicken nest, you are not feeling it. You know, you really are not feeling it. You're feeling isolated. You're feeling alone, you know. And so another thing is that's really, really important in the creative process is trying to keep in a good place. But that being said, sometimes when you're not feeling it, it was a great outlet. It was a great release, you know, of emotions.
Yeah.
You know. And so music really, it really has a special place in my heart, and that's why we're sitting here today.
Of course. If we have to break it down into one single fundamental factor with why it is that I'm sitting with you in this room today, it's music.
100%, 100%.
That's exactly what it is. It's the be all and the seal of it. Tell me something. So the pandemic hits. You've got all this time on your hands. It was not a good place in terms of being isolated because you know that you could not see other people, you could not share the music, you couldn't collaborate, which is also such an important thing when music's concerned. With the time that you had on your hands, do you feel that you perhaps picked up any new skills? What did you learn during the pandemic musically?
You know what? I started thinking about everyone. I started thinking about if I'm going through what I'm going through, I can only imagine what other people are going through. And your main reference is kind of Instagram. There wasn't much happening there.
Yeah.
You know, and if there was, it was probably, you know, for Instagram as opposed to what is really going on under the scenes with people. And it wasn't only until calling people and speaking to them and having a human conversation and just reaching out. And that was really nice. There was a lot of catching up over the phone. I wasn't a Zoom guy, but there definitely was a lot more catching up, a lot more FaceTiming.
Yes.
With all the spare time, did I pick up new skills? Absolutely. My whole process changed. I've almost finished an album. In fact, I'm just going to say I finished it with a dear friend of mine, Hawley, under a new alias, Cities of Gold. Happy music, funnily enough. I would describe it as like Todd Terje vibes, but slower BPM around the 112.
Got you.
Sort of sunset vibes. And a big part of that was also that I decided to learn bass.
Yes.
And Blondie arrived, and I bought that for my birthday present. Got a lot more into playing music and recording it on the fly, as opposed to over-engineering sounds.
Yeah.
When it comes to like a lead or a bass line. So really having that imperfection and just getting into a flow of jamming to the music and capturing those moments. Started singing a bit more.
Beautiful.
So there's going to be some tracks coming out with my voice on Salter label, Carson's label. Really, really cool bunch of guys. So quite a bit happened and more.
I think with the fact that we've got this beautiful Bluetooth function on this mixer, maybe the next time we actually do another show, we could have a little taste of the album, maybe a little preview. But let's just unpack something quickly in terms of your musical taste, your sound, broadly speaking about genre, right? From when you initially began your whole, trajectory into music, the genres that you began with, how has that changed, or even a better term would be evolved from where you started to where you are now?
Well, my story is pretty interesting because one of my best mates, Mark Olson, we started a duo together probably more than 10 years ago now, I think, called Fear of Dawn.
Yes.
And we connected on the same kind of music, which is sort of house house stuff at the time, but it was kind of that dusky Finnabasson, Adana Twins.
Speaking to me now.
Yeah, a lot of Hot Natured, I think, was just popping on the scene as well. And that was this kind of resurgence of, I guess, quote unquote, deep house that went sort of from these kind of faster tracks with pads into kind of more woody bass lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What was really interesting is when we started Fear of Dawn, I wasn't even a DJ, right? So I don't know how that worked. I think I was going to be the manager. But when we decided to start this, I always started wanting to be able to write my own records.
True.
And Mark was the producer, right? He was the guy. I was kind of like the ideas guy. Anyway, long story short, started really getting into the DJing, started working out really, really well. I had sort of a knack for it with sort of how it all worked, reading people, connecting with people, and just absolutely having a ball, loving what I was doing and loving what I was playing. And then I think it was only being together for 6 months that we got a record deal offer from Ministry of Sound. And we're like, holy shit, this is real.
Yeah.
And so we doubled down and we got a little studio and we rented a space together and we got really serious in the Sydney scene and started running parties and all that kind of thing. The music, we've had several top 50s in the ARIA club charts. We've even had a number 2 that was number 14 for the whole year. That's a song called All Right, featuring our boy Boswell. And what was really interesting about that was released on One Love, which is another childhood fan label because, you grow up listening to the Ministry of Sound compilations. And for us, it was also the One Love mixtapes and stuff like that. So that was really, really cool. And to actually then see your own name, your own artist name and all that kind of stuff. And we're like, wow. But one thing I learned, and this is where I really started diving into the more underground side of things.
Yeah.
Because Ministry of Sound was more of a commercial type setup in the sense that they were trying to get songs that would work on a radio because that's how they made money. If the track went on the radio, more people would buy it, but also there's more royalties sort of paid for primetime radio play. And if I had any advice to anyone, never, ever, ever write a dance track for radio. It doesn't make sense because you write a dance track to make people dance, yeah? But when you're starting out and you're following what they're following, the advice, it's really important to try to find your own way, right? And we ended up building up a big catalogue of house music because we were sort of in that electro phase with also Porter Robinson, I think is one, and can't think of the guys at the top of my head. Tommy Trash was really in his sweet spot and doing some really incredible stuff.
Yeah, I remember Tommy.
Yeah, so there was, a really cool kind of electro resurgence that now is sort of EDM, right?
Yeah.
And we were having these kind of electro type tracks as well as house tracks, but the label never wanted to go for the houseier stuff.
Yeah.
So we started building up a bit of a catalogue and then we left Ministry of Sound mutually on good terms and moved over to One Love, and then it all exploded with this house stuff that we were doing.
True.
And things were really good, and I felt a different kind of culture, a different family that taught me more about what it means to be a part of a label, what it means to be a part of a duo, and how to grow within that. So I started really getting more into the music, more into the digging, more into the discovery. Who's this guy? Oh, he's part of that duo. Oh, where's this sound? This sounds amazing. Oh, he's got more stuff like this.
Yeah.
Oh, he was also part of this band with this guy. Oh, who's this other guy? Oh, what's this label? And I really went into a bit of a search because what I realized, and this is where my mindset completely changed, is my definition of underground electronic music is basically you can do what you like. It's a safer place. It's a more creatively nurturing environment for an artist because you're not really writing to get on the radio. You're not writing for what the label wants. You're writing as an expression, might even be an expression of freedom, or a feeling, and this is serious stuff. It's a serious kind of thing to be able to have that at your disposal as a human being.
Absolutely.
Imagine working all day on something that you probably don't enjoy doing, looking forward to getting into the studio and having that outlet, having that connection, having that jam with another producer.
Yeah.
Right? Where, you guys are just in flow. And this mindset, this concept, wow, there's a whole world out there where you don't have to play music that everybody knows. In fact, you're encouraged to play music they don't know. You know, I'm like, well, this whole thing's flipped on its head. You know, what happens if I put this in the track, put that in the track? So you're writing music more to take risks, but be authentic, as opposed to give people pleasure on less risk taking. Or in other words, copying too much of what is already sort of people have heard.
Yes.
You know, and in the ecosystem of the underground plays such an important part for the commercial, right? They feed, it comes up with these new sounds that people jump on, and as more people jump on those sounds and those trends, it filters to the top, and then the commercial scene grabs them and goes full whack. And you start hearing it on all the pop records at the time. Like at the moment, most of the pop records are EDM tracks, right?
Yes.
So most pop music is on a 4-to-floor house type framework. Yeah. But so no one told me that. You know, I was just loving the music, you know, and making more and more friends. And as you get deeper into it, you make more friends and you go clubbing and you remember these feelings that a song will give you. So I love this world. I love the people that are in it. And it's brought me all my happiness, you know, in the sense of belonging to a community or an idea of beliefs. I've always loved people that put on parties that were inclusive.
Yeah.
In other words, if you rock up and you're about the music, you're one of us.
True.
If
you know, you know.
If you know, you know. And if you're vibing and you're positive, you're one of us. Not what you look like, what orientation are you, who you know. You know, it's if you rock up and you're just cool because you're there for the music and you're just in your own space, dancing, making friends, whatever.
You're in the club.
You're in the club, you know, and that was a really like, oh wow, you know, this is epic.
It's a beautiful thing.
And then being able to DJ full time, you know, being a full time DJ and I guess producer now for over a decade. You know, things went really quick for us, right? Yeah. This is all the kind of so it was like a new life of friends because all my other friends that weren't in the clubbing space were all like jobs 9 to 5, you know.
It's a stark contrast.
Kids 9 to 5, you know, and all this kind of stuff. Now I'm also expecting. So now I'm a non 9 to 5 soon to be father, you know. So it's really special and really, really interesting, man. So yeah.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
You're about, I think we are possibly 8 weeks at this point, maybe less, maybe just a bit more.
Yeah, let's sort of keep around that 8 mark. That's a good number.
That is a good number.
Yeah.
Beautiful, gorgeous wife sitting in the room next to us.
She's around the corner. We can't see what she's up to. Yeah.
I'm sure she's having loads of fun.
Hopefully she's napping.
So Trish, shout out to you.
Trish. You.
First podcast. You're in it.
Yeah, girl.
The one thing that I always think about with the underground, right, is that, like we say, if you know, you know. It's things that you can't teach. Like there's many aspects of DJing that you can teach, from the technical sort of stuff, the nuts and bolts that we talk about, you know, mixing tracks together, how you form your sets. But you can't teach song selection, for example. It is something that you need to feel and you need to take risks. And as an underground DJ and a producer, you're always taking the path less traveled, right? You're taking the risk based on what you feel is potentially going to tap into that emotional part of people.
You can mitigate, if I'm being technical, you can mitigate the risk a little bit by setting up songs. You know, if you've got a song that you haven't played, it's your delivery of that track. And what I mean by that is you can play a few tracks that are easier to open people up. And once they're open and you've earned their trust and they respect you, then they're basically giving you permission to drive the vibe, you know, be the driver of the vibe. And it's just a vibe train from there on, you know, and earning that trust, I think, and backing yourself with, okay, I've got an intention. It's not all about me. It's not all about them. This is a dance we're doing together.
Yes.
You know, and we're in rhythm, right? That is a really sacred part of DJ culture.
Yeah.
You know, because you learn about the people that you're playing to and they learn about you, and that's how you get your style.
Synergy, man.
Yeah.
I think that is probably one of the most important factors of a good DJ, regardless of genre, venue, time, or place.
It's connection.
It's connection.
Connection, And it doesn't matter if you're, if anything, it's more important. If you're the first person on the dance floor, you feel like you're on a full dance floor because they're acknowledging you. They recognize you and they appreciate you, being a leader and leading the vibe on the other end. Because without the vibe on the dance floor, every DJ knows it's not so special if it's just you. And this is leads us into this whole streaming phenomenon.
Absolutely.
What's that all about?
Man, it's like we're in isolation, you're alone, and yet you have these tools at your disposal that all of a sudden have to be the complete replacement for what would have been the human connection of you being out playing your music. And you are looking at a camera, you're alone, and you are just broadcasting yourself out there, and you have no idea what's happening in terms of who's watching, how many people are even real. We'll get into things like bots and automation, like that's a whole nother conversation.
But I've seen people like type while they're DJing to people that are typing back. Typing.
It's insane.
Damn.
Let me tell you something crazy. I saw a video once of a DJ, right, that had something in the region of 15 phones, all live streaming to different services while they were DJing, while they were managing the chat.
15 phones?
15
no
phones.
Way.
They had
is that like an exaggeration or is that like...
No, I counted. Within the frame of my own camera that I was looking
I wish
through.
you got the photo of that man so we could make a meme.
We're gonna find it.
Find that guy.
I'm
find
gonna
that artist.
So hear me out.
We're coming after you, 15 phone DJ.
Custom rig, 15 phones, live streaming. They're managing at least 2 of the chats all going. And one of his mates was actually filming it. He must have been so impressed that he had to just capture it and just be like, he couldn't believe it. Mind blowing.
Yeah.
So if we talk about live streaming, how important do you think, regardless of how it came about, is live streaming for the DJ or the producer in 2022?
It's important. It's really important. I think it was the best answer we had in the pandemic.
I agree.
The other thing too is you got to understand most DJs that are in the pandemic and then all of a sudden can't play, then they're expected to go on to another medium that, as we just discussed, has a different skill set. You need to multitask.
It's crazy.
No longer your crowd reading, your ability to connect goes out the window, and it's a new type of connection. You've got to type to people. You've got to acknowledge them when they send you a message, which is cool, But there's something to be said about human proximity of people in an intimate space. You can pick up on people's energy.
Yes.
Yes. So I think you lose a lot of that. And I think also a lot of people can't be asked to set up all this video stuff in order to do a stream of playing with no kind of really feedback, because a lot of DJs out there don't their way of taking people on a journey might not be high level of crowd interaction, but they're really into the transitions and more looking down at the decks, but somehow they have this kind of sixth sense awareness of what's happening on the floor. And I've seen DJs play like that, pretty much a statue, and get the crowd rocking, right?
Reading the crowd.
Well, just they've earned they've earned the crowd's trust, and the crowd's like, we're going to follow this guy. Yeah. Show us what you got, you know, and everyone is dancing together, but on their own. If you really look at a dance floor, everyone's in their own world dancing with everyone else at the same time, sharing that experience, but having a different experience with the DJ. This stuff's kind of like, this is like a church. This is like a religion,
it's crazy, man.
And it's really interesting because that's what a lot of people attribute to how important these kind of interactions and gathering of people are. And when we lost that, a big part of people's expressions were taken away from them.
Yeah.
So I think streaming's definitely here to stay. Absolutely. I think it's going to evolve. And I also think it hits a different type of person. So there's a different consumption there.
True.
But I just want all those people that aren't like pro streamers to shout out to you guys. We've got something really exciting for you that you don't have to just rely on being the next biggest streamer, you know?
Yeah. And streaming is just one aspect of that. It's an absolute black hole and a massive dilemma that a creative you don't have to be worried about those sort of things right now. And that brings us to social media, the plethora of platforms that people have to manage to tap into a clearly
It's a
fragmented.
big word, plethora.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
I like that word.
Massive amounts of people broken up across easily in 20 to 30 maybe social platforms that we could find, like with one Google search, right?
Right.
And it's expected that you have to be on basically all of these if you want to tap into all of these people so that you can get the level of reach, engagement, and just awareness around what you're doing, whether you're a DJ and most importantly a producer because you want to sell music.
Man, I used to, back to when I said I was really into it just before the pandemic, I had a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
That was an engine. I think you and I were talking about, you were helping me, right, with marketing or promoting
Yes,
the music releases or helping me. We were going to build a website or something like that.
Correct.
It is amazing what is expected of us, DJs and artists, on how much we need to self-promote ourselves or, get people's attention first. So interrupt someone with an attention grab and then sell them what we're up to, whether that's a song or a gig.
Yes.
That's not the gig, man. That's not a fun experience. If someone likes interrupting people and telling them what they're doing, I don't know how many people would actually enjoy that. And I don't know how many people actually enjoy being interrupted, So let's just think about that for a second. We're expected to be on all these platforms telling people what we're doing and trying to be creative in how we're going to get their attention. And, this is how many producers have posted a meme that's gotten more views than their track.
Yeah.
That says two things. A, the people following me don't really care that much about your music, which is what you care about and what's important to you. And they care more about the meme or you making them laugh, which is good. I'm not hating on memes out here, right?
Memes are good.
Memes are good, But it's just so disheartening if you post a meme or even just share a meme and it gets more engagement.
Likes, basic stuff.
Yeah, likes than your music, That can also just be that a lot more people, that aren't music followers, got exposure to that. But
yeah,
I mean, where does it end? I think a lot of people thought Facebook's the answer. Oh, great, I've got this tool, this social tool. Then Instagram came and people went, oh, yeah, okay. And now TikTok, and you're seeing like DJs do funny dances and all these weird kind of chopped up edited videos. Like, how much time does somebody need to be able to do all this marketing stuff themselves if they can't afford? And let's be honest, most of us can't afford all these platforms and doing really polished stuff. And then how much time is that going to eat into someone's creativity or crate digging?
It's insane.
Time,
It's insane. To give you some...
It really is insane, dude. Like, it's so insane that, it gets you questioning, why the fuck are we doing this stuff? Why are we doing music?
Exactly.
If I have to spend, if these marketing so-called experts telling me I need to spend, it's about 80% promotion or marketing and 20% content. What?
Yeah.
Let's just build a world where the music does the talking.
Crazy. Why can't we have one place where I can get everything that I need?
Well, let the music talk, because good music rises to the top. And, let's try something else, because otherwise there's going to be another platform. And then each platform, they always come up with these updates and new rules on, okay, now you have to do this because we think this is important. So you have to save an Instagram post to be like, how do you call it? Just more your world.
Yeah, there's a hierarchy of how engagement and actions that favor algorithms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's two sides to this coin, and we'll call this the horrific coin of social media. The one side is that you have to be creating content on a regular basis, right? It depends on the kind of content that you are creating, whether or not that content will be seen a bit more by others or a bit less by another group of people. We all know that video is the top form of consumption on social media. Short form videos, probably about maybe...
Yeah, it's better.
We're looking at about, is that good?
Yeah, it's good.
15 seconds. That is like the attention span that we're looking at for for people to be
They're
able
not
to see a
underground
video.
music followers, man, because we need more time to get you warmed up.
It's insane. It's insane. So we know that regardless of the kind of content that you are putting out there, it depends on what content you are doing in terms of the format,
Yeah.
whether or not it's going to be good enough to actually be fed out to more people.
Yeah.
That's the one side. The other side is that social media and algorithms purposefully lock down reach and engagement so that you have to advertise and spend money to actually get your stuff seen by people.
Do you know what my take on this is? We got a little special sponsor on the show.
Oh, yeah?
We got a remote under the mixer. Here we go.
There we go.
Sorry, folks.
Hook us up. Nice.
Yeah, there's the bad boy.
Thank you, Damien. You could not have a first podcast without there being something for us to just,
Man,
have
this
to
is
chat about.
live. Sorry, I'm speaking over you, but this is
It's fine.
live. I'm like a social media man interrupting you. Back to what we were talking about. So tell me if I've got it right. Basically, what you're saying is social media platforms are advertising companies that require us to bring people in with our content so they can put adverts in slot them in between.
100%.
So our job is to essentially we're working for a social media platform for them to then be able to justify them selling ads, and we don't get any money.
Exactly. We get nothing on
And
it.
we don't even get to speak to all the people that have chosen to follow us because they find us interesting.
True. And then
Hang on, does that doesn't even sound right? Like,
it is a tumble dryer of the worst things that you could ever have inside of a tumble dryer, and you are dead center inside of it.
and then on top of this social media game, we've got to make music and somehow,
Perform and do what you
perform
love
and do all that.
in the brief amount of time that you have left within the day.
Yeah.
So let's just dive even further into the whole social media thing. So as somebody who runs ads on different platforms, a funny way to think about it is that I basically annoy you to the point that you buy what I'm trying to sell you. I'll tell you why. You see an ad from my company for the first time. You're not going to click on that ad. You might notice it, but you're not going to do anything right. If you stop your phone in your feed and look at that ad for longer than 2 seconds, it's almost counted as an engagement. I can then target you again with a different ad called retargeting to the point where you start seeing so many different ads on so many different points of what I'm trying to sell you. It almost essentially convinces you eventually that you need this product and you are more likely to buy. That is sort of the principle with retargeting. So a click, a share, a comment, anything that pauses that ad in front of your face on your phone, even if it's briefly, I can target that action in some other way. So not only am I disturbing you from what you're doing online, I'm continuously almost brainwashing you to an extent
Yeah.
until you find a place within your life where you feel that product has some purpose.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's the opposite of how I would. My beliefs are different, man. If we should just be working, doing what we love, and inviting people to be part of that experience, and let the people that want to see that, and the people that don't, let's leave them alone. Everyone's busy, everyone's going through shit, everyone has different interests, and if we can, just be cool.
Absolutely. There's a time and a place for everything, I believe. If you have people who love Instagram, people who love Facebook, whatever.
I love it. I'm not saying fuck Instagram. I really do appreciate it from I get to see a whole lot of amazing artists.
Yes.
Like that is like, wow, not just illustrators and designers, but also musicians,
Yeah.
dancers, synth heads and their studios. I mean, like, damn, there's some serious studios out there and there's some cool people doing some authentic shit.
True.
There really is.
True.
And that is absolutely vibe for social media, but it's all the other stuff. And it's this kind of thumb movement and seeing people at dinner or at lunch on the phones when they're not being around each other and making eye contact, reading each other's body language, which is the same as DJing. Communication isn't just what we're saying.
Yeah.
It's our body language.
Yeah.
And that to me is disconnection. And the saddest thing, if anyone, thinks about it long enough, we've all felt disconnection in the pandemic, and we know how bad that is, and yet we are still doing it unconsciously.
True.
This is serious stuff, and we're seeing research come out about just how serious it is. I think there's a documentary on Netflix called the social media
dilemma
or social dilemma or something like that, right?
I think it's the social dilemma. Yes,
we need our own Jamie here to do research.
Honestly, we do.
Maybe we can get Damien someone next episode. So yeah, the social dilemma, and there is a lot of research that's coming out now about spending too much time on social media and how it's actually cultivating addiction and hitting our dopamine centers.
It's crazy. That's exactly
when someone
what it is.
likes us or all that kind of stuff, and then we become a slave to seeking likes from people we don't know. So hang on a minute, I've gone from like getting validation from my friends and my own little intimate circle to now I need strangers to approve what I'm doing to make me feel better about myself.
Oh, slippery slope.
It's dark.
It's so bad.
Dark.
That's why, on that point, TikTok is officially for a long time the fastest growing platform on the planet.
Right.
There is no platform or app on
It's a
cell
TikTok
phone.
world out there, man. It's a TikTok world.
They are garnering so many new users every single day. It is destroying everything in their wake.
TikTok has like a mindless kind of association to that word. TikTok. You know?
Exactly.
It's like you're being you're in the hamster wheel of unconsciousness.
It sounds edgy. It sounds uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's built on basically addiction. 15 to 30 second long short form videos, and it's done. And your thumb is just moving, man. You're like basically building muscles on your thumb the way you scroll.
This is giving me anxiety. Can we move on to something else other than social media?
Yes.
we're giving it too much airtime. It's probably giving our listeners a lot of anxiety too.
I agree. Let's just call that's basically the contextual basis of what we'll eventually
what we
start
have to
talking
deal
about.
with. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always a plus side. We like classic DJs, we build attention and we will resolve it, essentially. So let's take it back to a much lighter note. Let's talk about studio stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time ever, you were in a beautiful studio today. I've seen you play around with a bass guitar briefly on a few occasions, and man, you are so good. You're an absolute natural. But for the first time,
I've cheese. Yeah, go.
I've seen you in studio, and I saw you whip up an introduction for this podcast today. And what we essentially had was 3 hours, but you did it in 2, and it was so good to see you back in your natural element.
Man, it's good to be here in the studio. It's for the rest of my life. It's going to be an absolute sacred place for me, and where I'll never give up making music, no matter what stage of my life I'm at, because it's magic. You sit down with nothing, you come away with something. That something has energy in the form of sound that has the ability to affect other human beings, including yourself. Right, in a positive way. I mean, think about that kind of craft and magic that we have access to in this being alive. So, yeah, I had this grand master plan to whip up, use the drum machine here, the TR8, and do a breakbeat type thing. And then this is what I love. Damien's like, man, just get on Splice. And I'm like, you know what? Some dude has spent the time in probably one of those dope-ass studios to give us a breakbeat. So, that sped it up. That probably saved us the hour.
True.
Using a breakbeat loop. And then I got to jam on the Prophet 6 and the Sub 37, get the bass line in, get a bit of a lead going, and keep it really minimal because it's just an intro. And that intro, I'm going to invite people that join our tribe to add to that intro, and so hopefully our podcast intro is going to have its own evolution, and we'll NFT that one day.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
As a business, we are always on the hunt for creative minds, creative people, music, art, people who just love being in that space and just creating something out of nothing.
Yeah, the magic users.
So tell me something. When you are in what you would call the flow as a producer, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many tracks would you be happy to be producing per week?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I mean, I guess back in the day before the pandemic, my answer to that would have been releasing 1 track a month. So that's probably, the more time you spend in the studio, you can actually become more you can become better. Hey, baby, you can become better at what you can become better at what you're doing, which basically means that you have to write. You can have the ability to write less because you can get your ideas out sooner because you're more in tune with what you're trying to achieve. You have a clearer target. But then there's also like times when you write music and you don't really want to achieve something. You just want to express, the jam, right?
Yeah.
So before the pandemic, I would have said, given you a number, right? Say 1 a month releasing. But now it's not even about that. It's about what is sustainable. Because if I'm not hitting that and I'm no longer sustaining that, I'm going to be in this kind of I'm not achieving complex, right?
Yeah.
So I start getting in my own head in a negative way, There's an author called Stephen Pressfield who is an incredible guy. He has a book called Do the Work and another book called The War of Art. Highly recommend it. And for those people that have read those books, then you know exactly what I'm about to say is the difference between an amateur and a professional. A professional turns up, whether he's vibing or whether he's not vibing, and gets to work on his craft. And the amateur is always waiting for the inspiration. He's always, he waits. Oh, I'm not feeling it, say, oh, wow, I've got a really good idea. Gets that inspiration. And that's not a guarantee. If you're inspired before you start, there's how many people out there have been in that situation where they've got this sick idea, they're inspired, and they dip. They sprint so fast that they don't even know what they're doing anymore.
Yeah.
And something about the professional that can start and turn up and work and get into flow, as you say, get into flow and then building a discipline around that. And if you can sustain that in however way, I think Mike Monday has this crazy, awesome producer course. I think Claude Von Stroke is actually one of his students, which I think is amazing because you have this leader, head of Dirty Bird, El Capitan, learning, and people can see that. And I think that's what this is about. No, anyone who knows, anyone who knows, we really don't know, because there's just so much to learn. It's impossible to know everything and you're always learning.
Yes. Yeah.
So back to the flow, back to the sustainability. And I think Mike Monday talks about this a lot, is finding your sustainability.
Yeah.
If that's 3 minutes a day of trying to get into flow at a specific time. Quentin Tarantino says it all started changing for him when he started treating his script writing as a job, woke up, had his coffee and started writing, rather than, oh man, I got this great idea. I'm going to, start it at 11 and do it till the sunrise. And I'm so guilty of being a producer that was a night writer, mainly because I would get home from gigging, be inspired, be pumped up with all this energy and vibe and want to write. And it was my only time to be alone, and to get those ideas out and to not be disturbed. Right. So yeah, I mean, flow, to answer your question, now my answer is find out what your sustainable point is that you can consistently do over a period of 30 days and then stick to that and build from that. If it's too hard, wind it back a bit, be cool, be easy on yourself, love yourself.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, because the most important thing is growth and progress and setting yourself up for that kind of foundation.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about that is everybody's different. So the person that can do an hour and the person that can do 5 minutes, you're not competing with them. You're competing with yourself.
Yeah.
And that kind of internalization about how you approach your art and your craft is sacred to you. And you start to build a different relationship with the people around you that are doing the same thing, as well as yourself. So it's I'm sorry to get a bit deep here, guys, but it's like that's really that's where I've come now in my understanding to how to answer that question. So now, obviously I'm focused on this pretty exciting project, right? And I'm going to try and get in the studio when I can. And I guess we have this podcast that we're going to be doing weekly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there might be some time to do a bit of a jam, but I'll find out what my new number's going to be, and I'll get back to you on how I'm going with that.
I would love for us to be able to hear some things that you've done in the past, and some new exciting projects that are coming in the future.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's only a matter of time until we can get you as a producer in the space where you have more time to be in studio so that you can create.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
That's what it's all about, man.
Mm.
Tell me, if we talk about the sort of consistency that creatives should try and strive for in terms of where they draw inspiration from when they are producing music or putting sets together, whatever it is that they're doing. Is there a specific one or few things that you do outside of the studio that are not musical things, not musically related, that inspire you to become creative when you do eventually get back into the studio?
It just, when I'm in a session, most of the best ideas come to me mid-session when I'm taking a toilet break and there's that moment of silence. I'll be like in the bathroom doing a pee and then I hear the bass line all of a sudden. I'm like, oh my God, I've got it. Come back, race to do it. And I think there's something a lot to be said about silence, Yeah. So if people can, I highly encourage people to meditate. Meditation's been amazing for me. I'm not by any means a Zen master. I struggle to keep my own consistency of when I meditate. But I have, my time where I ice bath and sauna daily in the same session. And I do that around 4 p.m. because it allows me to take a break from the intense day, and all of that, and have this kind of moment to myself. And I'm like in extreme discomfort. I'm in a 4-degree bath that hurts. It feels like pins coming through my feet. And then I'm in this oven, where I'm sweating. But that moment to yourself and getting back to your breathing, and you let thoughts come in and out. And then the meditation in the morning. Sometimes I do meditation with my wife at night before we sleep. And then sometimes after my morning exercise, I try to start the day moving, right? Getting some movement, because I sit at the computer desk. I sit on a chair a lot.
Yeah.
I will sit at sort of a temple on the beach and just look at the waves and just be by myself and look at things in their natural state, people walking, dogs, try to focus on hearing sounds that are really, really far away, and then kind of focus in on that. How does it smell? How does it look? How does it feel? How do I feel? And my breathing. So I'm trying to hit it from a few angles at the moment. I definitely find that opens me up more. And if I'm more open as a human being, I have a higher chance of being inspired and touched by something.
Yes.
You're
open to it. Yeah.
I'm open to it. It's like I'm tuning my aerial to be bigger so I can take in more frequencies. And so that allows me to not only be open to something that has a positive impact, right? Like, wow, that sounds cool, but also opens me up to crazy ideas. Like, oh, what if I tackled this track and did this part in reverse and recorded that and had that there? And what if I didn't start with my drums first and started with abstract sounds and try to make a drum noise out of one of those abstract sounds that I recorded in my meditation? Things like this. So to answer your question, I think the more I do things outside of the studio, the more I spend time with myself, opening up, connecting to just honesty. Like, a tree doesn't lie, You look at a tree, it's been a tree. It's a very good zero baseline to sort of get your kind of bearings. Like, how's nature doing?
Yeah.
How's that guy doing? Yeah. It's just a tree. It's not trying to be something that it's not, or at least that's what my take on it. And there's a lot of that in nature. It's just being, and there's so much beauty in that. And I think the more we can do that in our music, where we just be, the more it's going to flow, more when the wind comes, a bit of wind comes and that tree moves with the wind, it's dancing with the wind. When an idea comes to us, we dance with it for a bit. Some of it sticks into the song and we're open for the next idea. And a lot of producers will feel me on this, that a lot of the time, some of their best tracks probably flowed the best, were written in the least amount of time, and it might have even felt like they were cheating because they always had the answer of what to do next, and everything just felt right. That is flow. That's when you're flowing, and that is an incredible feeling. I think martial artists can relate to that in being in the ring and feeling alive, and surfers can relate to that by being in a wave.
True.
That same kind of state where everything's heightened.
Yes.
And the stakes are high, and there are things outside of your control, and it's how you meet that, So it's all linked, man. It's all linked.
It's all connected. To further add to that, I think that one of the most important things that you touched on is that for you to be able to tap into these different resources, you have to be able to receive it.
Yeah.
Right? So there's definitely a level of surrender that you need to have.
Oh yeah, man. You gotta leave that ego at the door and pretend you don't know anything, and you get the best. You get the best.
Absolutely, because a beautiful mind that is able to expand and continue to grow and evolve is one that knows that the more that you learn, the less you actually know.
Absolutely.
And it's such an important thing that you always need to make sure that you stay true to, and you never let ego is such a bad thing.
Well, I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it can be a bad thing. It can get in your way, right?
True.
So it's learning how to let ego do what it's designed to do, because, ego is kind of separation, right?
Yes.
I am. And if you're like, oh, I won with everything, and you're looking at a tiger, oh, that beautiful tiger, and it eats you, the ego might have saved your life when you said, oh, I am human, that is tiger hungry.
Yeah.
Right? That's a good example of an ego saving us.
By the way, we do have a tiger that is always hungry.
We do. How are we going for time?
My man, we're going pretty well. It is now, we've gone for 1 hour and 5 minutes.
We should wrap up, unless you've got some more questions to extract my past or something, story.
I've got one more that I'd like to just hear while we're talking about music.
Yeah.
So we briefly touched on different aliases that you have.
Mm-hmm.
How many do you have in total? This might be a bit of a loaded question to wrap up with. How many aliases do you currently have? And how do you channel parts of your personality into each one that eventually becomes the sound that people hear that is produced through each of those aliases?
Oh man, that's a good question. So I have 4. I have Kaiser Waldon. I have Cities of Gold. I have Motohashi. No, that's 3. Why did I think there was a 4th? I think there's a 4th because Kaiser Waldon, I love house and techno, right? And I love to make people dance. But anyone knows there's just so much to that, so many attributes. And also there's different parts of those genres that are applicable in different themes and settings. And Kaiser started getting really like, I'll release a house track, or release a melodic track, or release a techno track, right? And the way people are sort of geared up at the moment is you kind of need one alias for each for people to understand, because there's a lot of emphasis on purism, And the thing is, though, why do that when I have to have 3 more social media accounts, 3 more memberships, and also the way I might do something in the melodic track is the same way I might do something in the techno track. So the cohesion is there, and I play broad sets because I play long sets. So I take people for a ride, and that's what I love doing. So born from that, so Kaiser's kind of the dance music guy, and no, this is a good thing, guys who are artists out there. You do what you want to do, you do what you want to do. This art is your sovereignty, and that's your power. If you want to do a different alias for a different genre, you do that. If that feels cool to you. If you don't, then you can do that as well. And I think you'll attract the people that truly understand you rather than the people that don't. And at the end of the day, we just want to be a little bit understood with what we're doing. And I think that's recognizing people following us and consuming our music, right? And then being inspired from that. Then there's Motohashi, which I haven't released any music yet, and I'm still trying to figure out what that's going to be. It's going to be slower, heavily influenced by a DJ that passed away during the pandemic, Andy Weatherall. Incredible guy, right?
Yeah.
What a guy. And his curation and his ability to draw you in, and that's going to be a collaborative project where my wife's going to be making kimonos and doing all this cool stuff, doing the artwork, and, I'm going to be playing a lot of bass in that and singing. So it's a bit more like kind of Nicholas Jar meets like, Jim Morrison meets Acid Pauly, maybe. I'm not sure if that's the right, but, that kind of vibe. And then there's Cities of Gold, which is a collaboration with my G, Hawley. That's more colourful, more brighter.
Yeah.
A lot of electronic guitar elements and stuff like that, and sort of sunset vibes. So, different aliases for me allow me to channel different themes, right? So Kaiser Waldon has so many different sounds, but it's a dance music theme.
Yes.
Yeah. And, Cities of Gold and Motohashi are different as well. But, I like to theme things for me. That for at least that works for me anyway.
On your point with a artist that recently died, Dave Smith, an absolute,
Oh yeah, rest in peace. The inventor
absolute-
of MIDI.
an absolute icon.
Damn.
Wow, 31st of May, he passed,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, that is such an immense loss to.
Yeah, let's all take a minute for Dave Smith.
What a strong and beautiful way to pay tribute and to end off our first podcast. Kaiser, as a expecting dad, a producer, DJ, a CEO, your life is so incredibly busy right now. I just want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you, my man. It's good to be here, and it's good to share the story. I want to hear more people's stories. This would be really nice. So, Richard, hopefully we can get more people on the show with their stories.
Absolutely.
Would you be down with that?
Absolutely, man. Great. Connecting artists and DJs.
Let's go. Let's do it.